Way to go. All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. We got a lot of things going on here. Okay, so every Wednesday for the next 21 weeks, we're going through the Mike Ferry 21-point sales system. Neil did time management 2 weeks ago. I did prospecting last week. Today, we're going over point 3 of the Mike Ferry sales system, which is past clients and centers of influence. So talking about exactly, Alexis just mentioned that she got a deal and it was from past clients. So there you go. All right, so I have a list of thoughts down here on past client centers of influence. Hopefully, again, there'll be something in there that's useful, but just keep in mind, we're just looking for that one little golden nugget every day. So first thing I wrote down here on past client centers of influence, remember that your past clients and centers of influence are your personal gold mine. Your past clients and centers of influence are your personal gold mine. But I wrote down underneath that, if you don't look at them as your personal gold mine, they will become somebody else's personal gold mine. We had one of the interviews that Neil did was with a guy, Michael Klein from New Jersey. And one of the questions that we asked him was, what would you say for a new agent who wants to build their business? What would you say to them? And he said, always call your past clients and centers of influence, because if you don't, I will. So you have to keep that in mind. They're either your personal gold mine or somebody else's. And that's why I say all the time to you is you should go out there and take everybody's database, because most people don't treat it like their database. So go take it. Go take theirs. Okay. Take their database. Take it from them. You have to remember that. All right. Point number 2. This is a big point. This is key for a lot of you. Don't hesitate to call the ones you haven't spoken to in a while. They haven't been waiting for your call. Don't hesitate to call the ones you haven't spoken to in a while. They haven't been waiting for your call. Have you ever been in a situation where you don't want to call someone because you feel bad that you haven't called them in a while?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I haven't called them in so long and I don't know what to, gosh, do I even call them? They're going to be upset. They might not even know who I am. Right? We come up with all these things in our head, and then you call them and they go, oh, hey, how's it going? Because they haven't been waiting by the phone. They haven't been going, hey, do you know it's been a year and I've been sitting here and Robert hasn't called once. Every day I look at my missed calls just in case maybe my phone messed up. Hasn't called one time. They don't say that, right? Call them up. Now, here's the thing. Mike Ferry would say that if you're really, really nervous about it, a script that you can use is call them up and say, you know, hey, John, it's Robert, Century 21. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing okay. Hey, John, I owe you an apology. And of course, they're going to go, what for? Well, it's been a year since we spoke and, you know, I haven't been giving you the updates on the market that, you know, I should have been giving you. And John's going to go, oh, don't worry about it. No big deal. So you can always issue an apology. They haven't been waiting for your call. Give them a call. Well, I haven't called them in 2 years. That's fine. Any of you have a friend or a colleague or something that you haven't spoken to in years, but when you call them, you go, oh, hey, how's it going? It's the same thing. All right. Don't hesitate to call the ones you haven't spoken to in a while. They haven't been waiting for your call. All right. Next thing I wrote down, remember the 10% rule. 10% of your database will give you business every year if you ask for it. 10% of your database will give you business every year if you ask for it. We have to ask for it. It's not good enough to just stay in touch. It's not good enough to just say, well, you know, if you ever need anything, let me know. That's not good enough. You have to ask for business. So I wrote down here under this point here, there are 3 big lies when it comes to our database. 3 big lies. Lie number 1, they know I'm in real estate. That's lie number 1. Because some people do, but most people don't. How do I know? if we looked at your cell phone and I went down the list and I said, what do these people do for a living? Could you tell me exactly what everyone in your cell phone does for a living? No, no chance. So lie number one is they know I'm in real estate. Lie number two, they'll call me if they need anything. That's lie number two. How do I know it's lie number two? Is because they do these reports every year and only 23 to 25% of people use an agent more than once. 23 to 25% of people use their agent again. So, oh, they'll call me if they need anything. Well, 75% of people are not calling you. They're going with somebody else. So that's lie number two. Lie number three, all my business comes from my database, so I have my database figured out. That's lie number three. How do I know? Well, how many people are in your database? 200. How many deals are you getting? 10. Okay, that's great. What happened to the other 10 deals? Well, what do you mean? Whatever number is in your database, your true database, not your LinkedIn contacts or your Facebook friends. Okay, because I get that sometimes. I have 1,000 people in my database. No, you don't. Yeah, I got all my LinkedIn connections, my Facebook friends. I got all these followers on Instagram. Those are not your database. Okay, can be used for business. We can get to that another time. Whatever's your true number in your database, 10% of that number should be the number of transactions you get from them in a year, either directly or through referral. So if you have 200 people in your database, that should lead to 20 transactions over the next 12 months. If you have 100, it should lead to 10. If you have 50, it should lead to 5. Okay, you get the point. So even if all your business comes from your database and you've closed 10 transactions, but you have 200 people in there, there really should be 20 transactions. So you're losing 10. So lie number three is, well, all my business comes from referrals, so I've got my database figured out. That's lie number three. You have to ask for the business. Okay, and if you do that, and if you stay in touch with them, you'll get a 10% rule. So let me quickly go through, because I think a lot of us have heard this before. Quickly go through, how do you get 10% from your database? Step one is to email weekly. Now, blind faith that we know what we're talking about, because most of you won't do this because you'll think it's too much. Email weekly. Doesn't have to be hand typed, super personable. Email them some real estate article, put them on a drip campaign. If you're at our company, we do that for you if you want us to. All you have to do is send an email to Adina, which is Irvine@century21masters.com, and she can get you set up on that. All right, but you have to give her access to your database, which some of you, for some reason, are terrified of doing, because you think she's going to sell it on the black market for like some amount of money or something. Email weekly. Just email them some sort of real estate article, something. Chances are they're not going to open it. And the ones that open it, chances are they might not even read it. But every week they see you to keep you top of mind real estate related. That's the goal. Okay. Step number two is you're going to mail monthly, some sort of postcard, something along those lines, so they have something to touch. Oh, wow, that's great. Good for you. All right. Again, don't spend a lot of time on it, because this is what they're going to do. Oh, wow. Good job, Robert. Way to go. Okay, what's next on the mail? But it's that 5-second impression, that the touch that they're seeing you. And step three is you're going to call every 2 months. And the phone call, we work on that script all the time. I'm so glad I got you at home. Want to let you know that in your area of wherever, 55 homes closed last month. A number of them sold for list price and above. Who do you know that might be looking to take advantage of the market? What about you? Have you thought about doing anything? So I'm giving them value, and then I'm asking, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? If you do those three things consistently throughout the year with energy and enthusiasm, you'll get a 10% return. Okay. Remember the 10% rule. I wrote down here next, treat your past clients and centers of influence with respect, because they are an asset that will allow your business to grow. So what I wrote down under here on treat them with respect is they are not just a number. They are not just a commission. Well, I'm calling them because this is number 16 on my past client center of influence list. No, this is Jake. Jake has a life. Jake has a name. Jake might have a family. Okay. Be interested, be intrigued, ask questions, treat them with respect. Okay. Don't just call them and treat them as a number. This is the big difference when people say, well, I don't want to feel like I'm begging for business. If you treat people with respect and you have energy and enthusiasm, you're not begging for business. You're simply having a relationship with your past client centers of influence that allows you to very easily ask for business. You're begging for business when you don't treat them with respect. You treat them like a number and you just say, hey, who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate right now? Or they say something, oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. But who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate? Like they're trying to engage with you and all you care about is, I'm just trying to get through my script. That's when you're begging for business. Treat them with respect, have energy and enthusiasm, and you're not begging for business. You have the opportunity to ask for business. Big difference. Big difference. All right. I wrote down here next, past client centers of influence. We have to build or continue to build, depending on where you're at in your career, your past clients and centers of influence. So set a goal to build at least, and pick a number, names over the next couple of years in your database. So think about this. Is it possible, if you're prospecting all the time, to add one person to your database a week? Is that possible? Seems possible to me, but I'll ask you. Okay, some of you are saying yes, great. So if you added one person a week, that would be 40 to 50 people a year, because you're going to take some weeks off. So over the next 2 to 3 years, you should have 100 or so people in your database. At least, if you just added one a week. I mean, one a month. I mean, one a week. Yeah, not 1 week. One a week. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're prospecting enough, you could be adding 2. So keep that in mind, that you have to build your database. Sometimes of us, and I was the same way, our database, we had the same number of database year after year. It's got to grow. You have to grow the database. Okay. So I wrote down here under growing your database, one of the ways that some of you, I still don't know why you don't do this, but some of you do this very well, is if you have a spouse, get their database. They have bet they have some different names in their phone than you do. Now, this could lead down a very bad path. Honey, let me see the names in your phone. Uh-oh. No. Okay. But they could have people in their database, right? So get their database. If you have older kids, get their database. Okay. Things along those lines. Find a way to build your database through their database. Another way to build your database is when you're talking to people and prospecting, the very last thing you can ask them is, hey, one of the things I do for other people in the neighborhood is keep them updated of what's going on in the market every couple months. Do you mind if I do the same for you? I mean, I should be able to get at least one person a week to say, yeah, that sounds great. Now, that's not a very solid database person, but the point is, what I can do with somebody like that is they're here, and each call, every 2 months I call them, I get closer and closer to a relationship with them, where 1 or 2 years later, maybe I get a referral, maybe I get a deal, I become their agent. So you can build your database that way. There's a whole list of, Mike's got a whole list. I'll see. I know I have it somewhere. I should have had it, my fault, of places you could look for your database. Is your hairdresser in your database? Is your insurance agent in your database? Is your title rep? Is your gardener? Are all these people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, are they in your database? They should be. Because guess what? If they're not in yours, they're in somebody else's. Okay. Absolutely. So you have to continue to build the database. Now, on the flip side of that, at some point when your database gets too big and too overwhelming, you might have to purge your database. So meaning that when you go, God, I have 1,500 people in my database and it's taken me forever to get through them. Okay, well, then we might need to purge some of that. Well, how do I know what people to purge? Here's the biggest clue on how you know to purge. Do you ever go through your cell phone and when a name comes up, you go, oh, God, I really don't want to call them? That ever happened to anybody? Probably anytime you see my name on your caller ID. Liars. Oh God, what does he want? So if you ever get that feeling, delete them. Get them out of your database. Your database is your gold mine. Your database is your happy place, right? That's your happy zone. This is my Zen. We're all good here. So you should never have anyone in your database that makes you go, oh God, do I want to call them? Get rid of them. That's how you purge your database. Get rid of those people. Your database should only be people you're excited to call. Or I did this to Melinda a couple of years ago. I've told this story before. Some of you have heard this. I told Melinda, she goes, my database is too big. I said, all right, let me try to help you. So I grabbed her cell phone and I opened up her contact list and I started scrolling. I said, tell me when to stop. And she said, stop. And I hit a name and I said, who's this? And she's like, I'm not 100% sure. I said, you're going to call him right now? She said, no. And I deleted them from her phone. And the look on her face, and I said, do you want me to keep going? She's like, no, give me my phone back. She's like, but I get your point. Like, if you're not going to call them, you don't know who they are. Sometimes you have to purge, because at one point she had like 1,600 people in her database. It was nuts. It's like, dude, we got to get rid of some of these people. So you have to purge it sometimes. Okay. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. Or anyone that says, don't call me anymore. That's also a good sign. You should probably delete them from your database. Just a thought. Keep in mind though, email is free. You never have to purge your email database unless they tell you unsubscribe, of course. But if you don't want to call someone, keep them on your emails. Those are free. At least they'll get something from you. All right, I wrote down here next. Another way to build your database is always adopt the client on the other side of the deal. Always adopt the client on the other side of the deal. Call them the day after closing to make sure everything is okay. So what I mean by adopt the client is, let's say you have a listing, buyer's agent represents the buyer. Your goal should be to make that buyer part of your database. Well, how do you do that? Is you just simply follow up with them. Hey, I sold you the house a couple months ago. I just want to check in. Everything okay? Good, great. Do you have any questions? Anything I can help out with? Because chances are the other agent's not doing that. A lot of ways we build our database is simply adopting the other side of the transaction. So one of the things I'd recommend for some of you that have been around for a little bit is go back the last few years on all your transactions and reach out to the client. If on your listings, reach out to the person who bought it and say, hey, I was a listing agent when you bought this property 5 years ago. I wanted to give you an update of what's going on in the market. Have you considered potentially selling this and moving on to something else? Guess what? They know you can sell that property.
Unknown caller.
Because you've done it before. I know. This is heavy stuff here. Okay. So adopt the other side of the transaction. Okay. It happens all the time. Down here next, we have to be specific when asking for referrals if we can expect to get them. We have to be specific. So what I mean by being specific is you can't just say, if you know someone that needs anything, let me know. That's not specific. They're never going to think of that. That's why the script goes, who do you know? Friends, family, coworkers that might be looking to take advantage of this marketplace. I'm giving them something to think about. Here's an example. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody says, where do you want to go to dinner? And you can't think of a place, even though you've lived in the town for years, you've been to 500 different restaurants, but you can't think of a place because the question is so vague that you can't think, I don't know. I can't think of a place to go to. But if somebody said, hey, you know what? I'm really craving Mexican food. You know, which Mexican place around here should we go for dinner? You're like, oh, let's go to wherever, because it was more specific. Be that way with your clients. Ask them for something specific. Call them regarding your listings. Who do you know that wants to buy this property? Who do you know wants to move into this area? That's very specific. Okay, don't be vague with them if you expect to get the referrals. All right, this next point here, this is a biggie. Determine who your money makers are in your database. First step is determine who your money makers are in your database and contact them monthly. So money makers are this. People that are referred you anybody, whether the deal went through or not, because the truth is a very small percentage of your database will refer you a deal. Okay. If you have 200 people in your database, not all 200 people are going to refer you a deal in their lifetime. Not going to happen. Very small percentage. So the ones that are going to refer you somebody, again, even if it didn't go through, oh, you referred me this buyer, I appreciate it. They didn't end up qualifying, so I couldn't help them. But they thought of you. Those are your money makers. Give them the VIP. Give them the extra touch, the extra attention, the extra rapport. Okay, the extra interest. Those are the ones you need to be in more contact with. I would highly recommend is some sort of face interaction monthly, whether it be a face-to-face pop-by, a Zoom meeting, a FaceTime call, something face-to-face. Even if it's just for a couple minutes, it doesn't have to be an hour meeting, could be a 30-second phone call. But that extra touch, that extra attention for your money makers, because it's such a small percentage, that will refer you business. Or a repeat client that always uses you. Those are money makers. They need more touches. Okay. I wrote down here next, past client centers of influence. If somebody gives you a referral, the very next question should be, who else do you know? So give you an example. We go through the script. Who do you know? Friends, family, coworkers that might be looking to take advantage of this. Oh, my friend Drew is thinking about selling. A lot of times what we do is, wow, that's great. Thank you so much. I'll give Drew a call. Greatly appreciate it. Hey, if anything else I can help you out with. Yeah, great. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'll let you know how it goes. We left. What you should do is if they give you a referral, great. Can't wait to call Drew. Hey, who else do you know? Because sometimes they might have 2 or 3 names in their pocket. They gave you one and then we ran. And it's like, well, I still have 2 other people here to give you, but you didn't ask for them. Goes back to asking. So they give you a referral. That's great. Who else? Oh, this person's looking to buy. Great. Who else? Just keep saying who else until they say I'm out of names. We miss the extra referral because we run with the one. Keep saying who else until they run out of names. Or the joke I like to make is keep saying who else until they eventually go, here's my cell phone, have a ball. Okay, that's the goal. That's the goal. There it is, right? But who else? Who else? They referred you one, they might refer you another. You never know. You never know. All right, I wrote down here next, ask the clients for referrals while they are present clients. Ask the clients for referrals while they are present clients instead of waiting for the transaction to close. This is when you have the highest level of relationship with them and they have the highest interest in discussing real estate with you. That last line is a key. This is when you have the highest level of relationship with them and they have the highest level of interest in discussing real estate with you when they're in a real estate transaction. You should always be asking for referrals. Especially because they've probably told people. They've probably talked about this with other people. And I want you to write this down. Everybody wants what everybody else has. Everybody wants what everybody else has. So if you're helping a client sell their house and they tell some friends, yeah, we're selling our house, we're actually upgrading to a bigger place. Everyone they're telling is going, well, I want to do that. Well, if they can do it, why can't we do it? Our house is better. We're in a better neighborhood. I mean, we got good jobs. I don't even think he makes that much money, right? This is all going through their heads. You've now made friends become enemies, okay? Because it's a competition now. But it's the truth. They want what everybody else has. So now other people are in that discussion. So that might lead to a referral. Everybody wants what everyone else has. After the transaction's closed, you still get a little bit of that, but not as much. Strike when the iron is hot. Okay. Plus, after the transaction's closed, they've moved on. They're moving, they're cashing their check, they're doing whatever. They're no longer in a high interest of talking to you. Not because you're a bad person. They've got other stuff to do. Okay, there you go. All right, so I wrote down here next, when talking to your database, always bring value to each call. Plan your calls effectively. So I wrote down underneath that, determine themes for your calls based on what is happening in your marketplace, bringing value to the calls easier, more fun, and better communication. So I'll repeat that again because it's a long sentence. Determine themes for your calls based on what is happening in your marketplace. Bringing value to the calls makes your calls easier, more fun, and creates better communication. So what I mean by that is, do people in your database want to know what's going on in regards to the coronavirus and their real estate market? Have they wanted to know that for the last year and a half? Of course they have. So base the calls around that idea. You should know who investors are in your database. What's going on at the end of September that investors might want to know about? The tenant moratorium, the eviction moratorium. So base your calls with investors around, hey, I want to give you an update of what's going on. I want to give you an update of what's going on with this, what's going on with that. You always have plenty of things to talk about with your database, bringing them value, but make it relevant to what's going on. Okay. Interest rates are always a great topic. Interest rates are still at historic lows. Okay. You could always talk about that. You could tell when interest rates are going up, when interest rates are going down, when prices are going up, but make it the best to your ability, make it about their community. That's why the script doesn't say, want to let you know that in Southern California, this many homes sold. Because if I'm in Orange, because I'm in the city of Irvine, I don't care. But if you tell me what's going on in Irvine, now my ears peak up. It's specific to them. If you know something going on in the community, something being built, something happening, something changing, make it of value to them. The reason that's so important is, number one, they are reading or hearing about it somewhere else. So when you don't bring the value to them on that, they A, think that you're not up to speed with the times. B, you're not giving them information that they really want to know. And C, they're looking for some sort of confirmation about it. So you can be that resource. Another way you could go about doing this, which I've said this to a lot of you, that I think you should be doing on your calls right now, because there's so much chaos going on in the world and people are so curious, is ask them sometimes, hey, I'm sure you've read, heard, or seen something about what's going on in real estate in the area. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? I think that's a great line for your database, because, boy, let me tell you something. If you want to find something online about real estate based on your opinion, you'll find it. What do I mean? If you think that prices are going down, you can search something on the internet and find something that supports your theory. If you think prices are going up, you can find something on the internet that supports your theory. You can constantly find it. So it can be very confusing about what's going on. Sometimes asking them that question, let them open up as to what they want to hear about. What are the values they're looking for by simply asking that question? Okay. Past client centers of influence are the only source that you should be leaving voicemails for. Leave them a voicemail, because it's weird if you just keep calling and it's missed calls. Like with an expired, they don't know. You're hoping that you actually don't want to leave a voicemail for an expired, because if you leave a voicemail, they'll listen to it and then not call you back. But if you don't leave a voicemail, they might call you back just based on a missed call. Of course, being that only about 2 of you are actually doing any of the expired training, none of you should be calling expired anyways. But we'll move on. All right, the next point I wrote down here, upon closing each transaction, have a specific call schedule in place that will define your level of service and build a bridge for future business. Upon closing each transaction, have a specific call schedule in place that will define your level of business and build a bridge for future business. I can't tell you how bad I failed on that point in my career. I failed that point at epic proportions. Okay, but it's super important. Karen Bernardi. So I'll give you 2 examples. So Mike gives this example, and then I'll give you Karen Bernardi. So Mike gave an example of call them the day of the closing, call them 7 days later, and then call them 14 days after that. So that can be an example. Karen Bernardi has the 3-3-3 rule. She calls them 3 days after closing, make sure everything's good, everything's, nothing's come up in the last couple of days. She calls them again 3 weeks later. So 3 days after closing, 3 weeks later, she calls them again, checking in, make sure everything's going okay. And then 3 months later, now it's want to make sure again, everything's going okay, but now it's also a normal database call. But the point is that there's a schedule in place for every closing of when you're going to call them. And when you have a schedule in place, it's easier to remember than you're just kind of winging it. So create a specific call schedule that will define your level of service and build a bridge for future business. Okay. Okay, remember this point here, next point. They are not waiting for your call, so don't be disappointed if they don't respond as quickly as you want. So I'm going to ask Karen about this tomorrow, because we're doing a mastermind with Karen Myatt tomorrow. Karen Myatt said something really interesting about her database that I want to go over on this point, and it'll be one of the last points we go over. I asked her one time, we were talking about her database, and she had just gotten a listing. And I said, how long has this person been in your database? She said they've been in her database for 10 years. And I said, oh, wow. And she's like, yeah, it was a just listed call 10 years ago that I said, do you mind if I update you on the market? She said, yeah. And I've constantly called them. She said, they've never picked up the phone. I've always left them. I've never picked up the phone. I said, 10 years, they've never picked up the phone. She said, never picked up the phone once. She said, but then they called me when they were ready to sell their property. And I said, I think that's great. A lot of people would have given up on them after a certain amount of time. And listen to this. This is a key point here. She said, they know I'm a real estate agent. So if they're not interested in buying or selling real estate, they're probably answer my phone call. They don't have any interest in talking to me because they're not buying or selling real estate. Because most people don't buy and sell real estate all the time. She said, but by calling and leaving that message, whenever they are ready, I'm the one they're going to think about. So you have to get that in your head, is that they're not waiting for your call. They're not expecting your call. They're not thinking about buying and selling real estate all the time, every couple months. So if they don't get back to you or they don't respond, it could just simply be, I don't have any real estate stuff to talk about, so I don't feel the need to respond to you. But if you do that, so then we did the math on this. We did the math on this with her. I said, how often do you call these people? She said, well, these people I move to 4 times a year. I said, okay, so 4 times a year and you've done it for 10 years. So you've called them 40 times. She said, yeah. I said, 40 times, 40 voicemails. Yep. I said, how long does it take to leave a voice dial and leave a voicemail? She said, I don't know, a minute, because it's just a quick message. I said, let's just say it's a minute and a half, right? So 40 calls, minute and a half for leave the dial, leave the voicemail, that's 60 minutes. I said, okay. I said, how much is the commission going to be on this listing? And I think it was going to be like 11,200 or something like that. Let's call it 11,000. I said, okay, so $11,000, divided by 60 minutes, it's $183 a minute. It's $11,000 an hour. It's a decent pay rate. So you have to remember with this, when you're leaving voicemails, you're constantly leaving voicemails, don't get frustrated. Like, oh my gosh, I left them voicemail every 2 months and they didn't call me back this year. Well, they didn't have a real estate need. But 10 years down the road, they will, and you're going to get paid 10, 15, 20 grand for leaving 40, 50 minute voicemails. Great return on your investment. I'll bring it up to her when I talk to her tomorrow. When we talk to her tomorrow at 12:15. So it's just a really key point you have to understand is that don't give up on them because they're not answering right away. Don't give up on them because they don't respond as quickly as you want. If they don't have a real estate need, they're not going to put you as a priority. But when they do, pays off. Pays off. All right. And then the last, we're just up on time here. So just the last couple points here is, this is a key point. I wanted to make sure I got to this one. Build a reputation as a real estate resource. Build a reputation as a real estate resource. So here's what I mean by that is, don't just ask them if they know someone that's looking to buy or sell, if they're interested in buy or sell. Ask them if they need a plumber, if they need a roofer, if they need a pool person. Do you need a painter? Do you need a contractor? Be the resource to them for everything home related. Because every time they called you to say, hey, what was the name of that plumber you talked about? Oh, it's this person. That's another connection you have with them. And then hopefully that plumber does a great job. And then that's another connection you have with them. Like, oh, wow, thank you for that. They did a great job. They saved my life. Be a resource, be a housing resource to them, not just a real estate resource. That's building that relationship. You want them to come to you for everything, housing related. Okay, you're not their therapist. Okay, so you don't need to get involved with that. You're not their attorney. I don't care how many Holiday Inns you stay in. Some of you didn't understand that commercial. There was an old commercial that there would be like, someone would say, I need a doctor. And this guy would gal would go down and play doctor. Are you a doctor? Like, no, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I don't care how many Holiday Inns you stay in. You're not an attorney. You're not a doctor, but you're a real estate resource. You're a housing resource. And if you don't know people, if you don't have those type of people, that's fine. You'll build that up over time, but don't be afraid to do that. Be a resource to them. Questions on anything I went over today? Regards to the database. Good stuff. All right. Well, hopefully there was 1 or 2 things in there that'll be good for you that you can take on moving forward. But remember, it's either your personal gold mine or somebody else's. So if you got nothing else out of that, remember that point. All right, everybody. That's all I got. We have a